Hello everybody and welcome back to Suzerain. So in the last episode, we've started recovering our economy a little bit. Also, we worked out a trade deal with Lesbia and that makes us 3 of 4. We couldn't get anything with Vogsland because of, well, just some predetermined things, and plus we turned around and had the closed off and sanctioning with them with United Contana, so that kind of damaged our possibilities of having a Vogslandian trade deal or anything like that. But again, 3 of 4, not bad at all. So now, and we also had to deal with Peter, our vice president. He has gotten himself in a bit of a pickle. He's divorcing his wife, and he's also sleeping with my secretary, which is a big problem. And I'm having a meeting with Lucien in the morning to discuss what to do next. However, it seems like Lucien has some more information about the situation. It seemed like he already knew about it. So let's see what we've got going on. It was early in the morning after my talk with Peter. The sun was just beginning to peek over the horizon. The Maroon Palace was empty, save for a few cleaning staff. I entered my office to find Lucien already waiting for me. Mr. President, thank you for meeting with me at this hour. I couldn't sleep anyway. Very well. I'm pleased that you chose to call me after your conversation with Mr. Vectern last night, although I was already aware of his illicit relationship with Miss Suno. How did you find out? I'll get to that. On its own, given Mr. Vectern's established reputation as something of a playboy, the affair is unlikely to cause much damage. However, a more troubling possibility has been brought to light. A recent conversation with Mr. Hailstone, our whistleblower from Runeberg, revealed the presence of a spy within the Maroon Palace. I believe Miss Suno is our mole. She has been using her relationship with Mr. Vectern to gather information. Oh, great. Tell me more. I can do better than that. I'll show you. Lucien reached into his coat pocket, pulled out an audio tape and fed it into the reel-to-reel machine on my desk. This was recorded in the palace at 1809 on the second day of your trade visit to Lesbia. I pressed play. I heard Peter and Livia's voices. You sure everyone's gone for the day? Relax, Liv. Nobody's working that hard with President Stick Up his ass off in Lesbia. Oh, I'm definitely firing your ass now. Livia giggled. I heard the sound of kissing, then of drinks being poured. I'm glad you stayed behind. Did he tell you how it's going over there? Do you think there's a chance they'll form an alliance? As a matter of fact, yes. He and Prime Minister Alvarez just sealed the deal. But enough work talk, Miss Suno. I want you bent over my desk, now. Lucien grimaced and switched the tape off. And then what happened? Yeah, of course, that's what we should ask. This indeed is cause for concern. I'm glad you agree. And that's not all. I found her resume on file, and there's a year-long gap between her finishing secretarial school and starting at the Maroon Palace. Normally this would have been looked into, but Miss Suno was hired before a background check could be completed by one Peter Vectern. Just then there was a knock on the door. Livia opened it cautiously. Good morning, Mr. President, Mr. Galad. I didn't realize you'd be in so early. Can I get you some coffee? Close the door. Have a seat. Livia sat. She looked puzzled. Is something the matter? Enough pretending. Your secret is out. I'm not sure what you're talking about. Livia. Lucien has evidence. Livia buried her face in her hands. I'm so sorry, Mr. President. I was foolish, and Peter was so nice to me. But it's over now. Nobody ever needs to know. That's not what the President means, Miss Suno. We're referring to you being an intelligence agent for Runeberg. Livia sat upright. She looked shocked. Pardon me, Mr. Galad, but are you feeling all right? Don't play dumb, Livia, if that's your real name. Mr. President, I understand if you don't want me to keep my job, but why smear me with an outlandish accusation? Miss Suno, indulge me for a moment. What were you doing in the year before President Rain's inauguration? Livia's face flushed. If you must know, I was working as a cigarette girl at Porto's. It's a Lechavan salon. I was saving up so I could afford my own place in Holsword. Here's the proprietor's number if you need to double check. Why do you just have that on you? She scribbled a telephone number on a piece of paper. Lucien snatched it up. Oh, okay. The owner of the shop. But why were you so eager to help David back in Benvie? To tell the truth, Mr. Rain, I was hoping to run for office myself someday. I want to make a real difference in the world, like Miss Morgna or Miss Walda. But I guess I messed that up by getting involved with Peter. Now they're all just going to say I slept my way to the top. And you're questioning Peter about Swordland's potential alliances. I told you, Wait, how do you know about that? There was a loud pounding on the door. Peter barged in without waiting for an answer. He was unshaven and wore the same clothes as the night before. I came as soon as I heard the three of you were in here. Anton, what the hell are you doing? I told you I had this under control. Sit down and shut up. Peter took a seat on the far end of the sofa. He looked over at Livia and noticed her troubled expression. God, why involve her? This is my mess. She did nothing wrong. She's a spy, Peter. You messed up big time. What? I have reason to believe she's been relaying information to Runeberg, information that you leaked to her in your carelessness. Lucien rewound his tape and played it again. As Peter listened, his eyes widened in disbelief. Lucien, you rat bastard, you've been bugging my office. I mean, that's fair, but still. I mean, wouldn't that kind of be normal in like a head of state's office? I mean, I think in the White House they have a recorder that's always present and stuff like that, so Obviously for a good reason. Both Peter and Livia were glaring at Lucien now. He looked unrepentant. I had noticed the vice president's behavior becoming increasingly erratic and unprofessional over the past months. I wanted to get to the root of the cause. So you wiretapped your own goddamn colleague? And for what? Have you been getting off on this, you pervert? Certainly not. I believe that along with Runeberg whistleblower's admission that there is a spy in the palace and certain gaps in Miss Suno's resume, this tape makes a compelling case to investigate the secretary for espionage. Whether or not the investigation yields positive results, Mr. Vectern ought to be held accountable for his willingness to divulge such sensitive information. He ought to stand trial, or, at the very least, resign. Peter's jaw dropped. Livia stood up. If I may, Mr. President, I've been paying attention to what goes on in the palace, not because I'm some sort of double agent, but out of genuine interest. Hard as that may be for you to believe, Mr. Galad. She scowled at Lucien, then turned back to me. And from what I've seen, this man has been attempting to undermine your vice president at every turn, perhaps with the goal of replacing Peter himself. You have a lot of opinions about this for a simple secretary, but I mean, you did say you wanted to get in politics. I don't believe you. For good reason, but, Of course you say that. Peter's your lover. Livia looked at Peter on the other end of the couch. Her eyes softened. He was my lover. We've put this behind us. The two of you ought to do so as well. Lucien frowned. My personal misgivings about Mr. Vectern aside, I would never do anything to harm this administration. Mr. Vectern, on the other hand, has at best committed adultery and at worst delivered state secrets straight into the enemy's hands. Who could I believe? Peter, Livia, out, now. Peter and Livia exchanged worried glances before exiting my office. What are you going to do, Mr. President? I should fire you for surveilling Peter, but I won't do that because that was actually useful information. You're the strategist here, not me. You make the call. I already told you what we should do, sir. Investigate Miss Suno. And if she does turn out to be a spy and word gets out, I'll look like a fool. Not if Mr. Vectorn shoulders the blame, as he should. True. He was the one who hired her. Sir, do I have permission to proceed with the investigation? Yes. Lucien adjusted his tie. I'll apologize to Miss Suno and tell her this has all been a misunderstanding. We can't have her running away during the investigation. No, I'll do it myself. She's too suspicious of you. Very well, sir. Lucien gave a slight bow as he left the office. I sat by myself for a while, wondering what exactly I had set into motion. Oh, Peter. Peter. You just had to do something stupid, didn't you? Right when things were actually starting to kind of come back and maybe look kind of good. You know, besides me being possibly impeached. But, yep, you just had to do something stupid. Damn it, Peter. Results of the affair scandal. Office of the President of Sortland, Maroon Palace. Several days had passed since I ordered the investigation into my secretary, Livia Suno. Both Peter and Livia had been acting unnaturally nice to me, believing I let them off the hook for their affair. They seemed to be avoiding each other in the hallways, though. I was just settling in behind my desk when Lucien knocked on my door. Sir, a moment of your time. Of course. Lucien entered my office and closed the door behind him. Our security team traveled to Lechaven to speak to the owners of the pub Miss Suno named. They confirmed that one Livia Suno had worked there. Their description of her did not match that of your secretary. However, it did match that of an unidentified corpse that washed up in Linkirk Bay 2 months before your inauguration. Ah, shit. Further investigation by our operatives in Roomberg matched Miss Suno's description to a woman named Ilana Vance, last seen graduating from Crimsrod Political Science Institute. Our whistleblower from Roomberg recognized the name Vance as belonging to a deeply embedded covert agent, although he had previously assumed it was a man. That lying, two-faced succubus. To be fair, Miss Suno was just doing her job. Your vice president, on the other hand. But none of that can be helped now. The question is, what are you going to do, sir? I'm going to have Peter castrated. Well, actually, what do you mean? I'm going to murder them both. Lucien stroked his beard. I'm going to assume you're joking. The standard procedure would be to try Miss Suno for treason. If we do so, it's only a matter of time before the media pieces together what happened. Outwitted by a woman, it won't look good. Jesus. What if there was no trial? Mr. Gracer and his men could certainly take care of this in secret. Yes, brilliant. Let's do that. Yep. A wise choice, sir. By take care of, you mean take care of for real, right? It means whatever you want it to be, sir. If made to look like an accident, another covert assassination could solve our problem before it even starts. But I understand if you still harbor fond feelings for Miss Vance. Screw Miss Vance, and Peter too. Let's have them both killed. Yeah, Peter. Sorry, buddy, but I can't have this getting out. I got enough problems as it is. Lucien was trying very hard not to appear pleased. As you wish. I'll call Mr. Gracer right away. It ought to be done by the end of today. And tell him to make them suffer. Jesus. Okay, in this one instance, I'll be a prick. The biggest prick. Lucien nodded and walked out. I took a minute to gather my thoughts, then left the room, taking my bottle of early maroon whiskey with me. My secretary was outside, typing up some correspondence at her desk. I'm so sorry for the misunderstanding with Lucien. You've got a brilliant career ahead of you. She looked at me a bit strangely. Thank you, Mr. President. I took one long last look at her. Head to Peter's office. I knocked on the door and Peter answered. He looked at the bottle of whiskey, then at me. Hello there, you two. What's the occasion? I just found this. Forgot I still had it left over from my first day in office. Anton, it's 11:30 in the morning. He cracked a smile. What are we waiting for? He brought out 2 glasses and filled them up. We drank in silence for a moment. Lucien was right. I've been a miserable excuse for a vice president, but I'm ready to start over. No more affairs, no more being late, no more, well, less drinking. I just want to do right by you, Anton, as a colleague and as a friend. You don't need to make it up to me. Our friendship goes too deep for that. Peter's eyes had their old sparkle in them again. Goodbye, Peter. I walked out, leaving the bottle on his desk. I returned home that evening and headed straight to my study, waiting for Carl to call. Straight up Godfather. Straight up Godfather. You broke my heart, Peter. You broke my heart. Updates on the situation around the affair scandal. It was late in the afternoon and I was nervously pacing around my office. My new secretary would start next week. It had been several days since I had Carl Gracer secretly kill Livia and Peter. It wouldn't be long before word got out that both the vice president and the president's secretary had gone missing. At Lucien's urging, I had arranged a press conference to get ahead of the narrative. Of course, our deal with Marcel Caranti meant journalists wouldn't be asking too many questions. Still, one had to keep up appearances. The conference was slated to begin soon. I rang up Carl. Yes, Mr. President? How exactly did you dispose of Mr. Vectern and Miss Suno? They both have been dissolved in an extremely powerful acidic solution, sir. No trace has been left. Good work. It's my pleasure, sir. The moment I hung up, Lucien knocked on my door. It's time, Mr. President. He and I made our way to the downstairs conference room. A dozen journalists were already waiting, notepads at the ready. They all stood up when we entered. Thank you for coming. I would like to address the growing rumors concerning Vice President Peter Vectern and my secretary, Livia Suno. Unbeknownst to me and the rest of the administration, these 2 employees were carrying on a lurid affair in flagrant defiance of Swordfish values. The journalist started talking. I motioned for quiet. Unfortunately, before they could be punished for their misdeeds, both disappeared. It is assumed that they ran away together. The incident shall not interfere with the completion of my presidential goals. The rest of my staff is now under investigation to root out any other potential wrongdoing. By now, the reporters were nearly jumping out of their seats, hands raised. Please be aware that the president only has time to answer a limited number of questions. He gestured to the reporter at the far end of the table. Mr. President, how are you personally coping with this horrifying betrayal? It must be very hard on top of all the other stress you have to face in office. I said a silent prayer of thanks to Marcel Caranti. I don't have time to dwell on it. I must move forward so I can continue to do the same with Swordland. She and the other reporters nodded. I see, Mr. President. Thank you. Lucien smoothly interjected. Thank you for your time, ladies and gentlemen. That will be all for today. The reporters reluctantly left the conference room, leaving Lucien and myself alone. Oh, that went well. Marcel Caronte has come through for us yet again. I'm not sure how much longer we can count on his kindness. In the meantime, sir, there's the matter of replacing both your secretary and your vice president. I have a few candidates in mind. Very good, sir. We left the conference room on the long walk. We left the conference room. On the long walk back to my office, I started to think about who my new vice president should be. Okay, so now we have to deal with finding a new secretary and getting a new vice president. But this does open up some options. Also, our journal has changed a slight bit. I think if we go to our cabinet over here, go to Peter Victor, we will see that things have changed on his page a little bit. So it ends in 1952. Sorry, Peter. Had to be done. Okay, selection of a new vice president. Office of President of Sorlin, Maroon Palace. It was here, the day I'd been dreading since Peter's death. At the entrance to my office, my secretary Sylvia took my hat and coat. She was a matronly woman in her 40s. She had a spotless background assisting various Maroon Palace officials. Replacing Livia had been easy, but replacing my vice president would be difficult. Swedish law dictated that if a vice president failed to complete his term, new candidates were to be put forward by the members of the cabinet. After much deliberation, the list had been narrowed down to 3. Lucien Gallard was the frontrunner, followed by Gloria Torrey and Albin Clavin. It was up to me to decide who would fill Peter's shoes. I wanted to chat with them one-on-one before making my decision. I had just begun to settle at my desk when I heard a knock at the door. Lucien entered and perched on the chair across from me. Sir. All right, Lucien, you're one hell of a strategist, but why should I make you VP? It is precisely in my capacity as strategist that I have evaluated the experience and capabilities of your potential vice presidents. Objectively, I am by far the most qualified candidate. I would advise you not only to think about our long history together, but also the many crises I have helped shepherd you through. I won't say much beyond that. I believe my work speaks for itself. You're such a valuable strategist. I don't know if I can afford to lose you in that capacity. As vice president, my ability to serve you and this administration will only increase. Lucien got up from his chair. I expect you will make the right decision. He left my office. Just a minute later, there was another knock at the door and Gloria Torrey came in. Mr. President, I must say, I was not surprised at all when my name was put forward. You seem confident. I am, Mr. President. To put it simply, what I bring to the table is years of experience. I've been a member of the Assembly for almost 20 years, and I spent 7 years as its Speaker. This alone speaks for itself. As you know, I am also leader of the conservative wing of the party. You can see what I'm getting at. And I do need their support right now because I've kind of ticked them off, and I'm going to tick them off even more with certain other bills that I'm going to pass, like the women's rights bill and stuff like that I think that's being worked on right now. And I've already kind of done some other things too. So I'm going to need her help. So I'm more than likely going to pick Gloria. Granted, I don't like the thought of Lucien being in the wind, knowing everything that I've done, but at the same time, he goes down with me, I guess. You become the vice president, and I get the votes from the conservatives. Precisely. This would allow us to pass bills far more easily, especially if those bills are aligned to my block's cause. I will think about it. I want you to know that I value order over everything else, Mr. President. Being the Speaker of the Assembly requires principles, nerves like steel, and determination to uphold proper conduct. You can expect to see the same of my vice presidency. You being a woman could also prove advantageous. Not just any woman, a strong woman who was able to protect order in a room full of unruly men for 7 years. Think about the message it would send. The first woman vice president of Sworland. No, the first woman vice president in the whole continent. What support you would lose among traditionalists, you would gain tenfold among Swordish women. There is much to gain from selecting me, Mr. President. I believe you will make the right choice. You're right, there is much to gain. I'll consider it. I knew you would see reason. I wish you a nice day, Mr. President. Now, Alvin, he doesn't have any sort of advantages at all. Gloria made her way out. A minute later, there was another knock at the door. This time it was Alvin Claven's turn. Greetings, Mr. President. It's a great honor to have been chosen as a candidate. Really terrific. I will be straightforward. Why should I pick you? As you know, I represent the reformist wing of the party. What Sworland needs today is not only to catch up to our more modern neighbors, but to surpass them. I believe we can do that. No, I'm sure. However, this will only be possible if we set aside our differences and unite as one. That is the outlook I wish to bring to the position of vice president, so that Sworland can excel and soar to new heights. I did not ask about your opinions. What can you provide me with? Very well. The fact is, if I'm the vice president, reformist members of our party will be more likely to support you in your causes. This will smooth the passage of bills and help move our administration and our country forward in record time. If you join the administration, that is. I don't think that's likely. As unlikely as it is, we all must try. What this country needs is more dynamic, youthful leadership. Look at you, President Rain. You became the youngest member of the Assembly and completely rejuvenated Swordish politics. I want to do the same. We need to be able to take risks and make gains, and that is only possible with a forward-looking perspective. There, I've stated my case. I trust your judgment. If I was doing a reformist route, I would probably consider it, but nah. Thank you. I will consider what you said. Alvin got up and left. I leaned back in my chair, thinking about the pros and cons of each of my vice presidential candidates. I could almost hear Peter's voice in my head, laughing at the absurdity of my situation. But of course, he wasn't there. Alright, yeah, like I said, I'm probably going to end up picking Gloria Tory because I need that conservative support. And I'm not going to be able to win anything with the reformists anyway, so I might as well double down on the conservative politics and kind of make up for the ground that I've lost. So yeah. Alright, Vice President selection. The Vice President position remains vacant after the events of the scandal and has to be filled by a capable person that the administration and party can trust. Several options have been laid out by the cabinet, and we need to make a decision immediately. And I will pick Gloria. Alright, and Gloria Tory is now the Vice President of Sworland, and the only female Vice President on the entire continent. So, well, on the entire continent. So, yeah, it's big stuff there. Briefing on the women's rights situation. Well, we'll go ahead and do the start of the day here. Lucian and I were on our way to my office. I was holding a mug of coffee in one hand and a folder of various documents in the other. As we turned the corner, Lucian spoke. The Ashraf anniversary is coming up soon, the most important day for the Bludish populace. Botani Ashraf is one of their symbols, as you know. Your presence at this event would show your desire for a more unified Sworland. We will reap the benefits if you decide to go, I'm sure. Why should I attend the Bludish anniversary? It will send a clear message to the Bludish. Your president is with you. This will alleviate tension. We rounded another corner to reach the last corridor leading to my office. Lucian suddenly stopped in front of one of the doors. The plaque that once said Vice President Peter Vectern had been removed. The door was halfway open, and I could see a few workers moving boxes around the room. One of us saw us, bowed his head, and changed the name tag on the door to Vice President Gloria Tory. I heard Gloria's voice from behind him. Be careful with that box. She noticed us and immediately made her way to us. Mr. President, Mr. Glad, how's it going? Are you settling in yet? Are you settled in yet? Getting there, Mr. President. That reminds me. Mr. Glad, could you talk to the staff secretary for me to get this furniture sorted out? I have a few more boxes coming in. Lucian's upper lip curled. He and Gloria stared each other down for a moment. I'm not your servant, Miss Tory. It was just a simple request, Mr. Glad. I don't know what's with you, but I don't like your attitude. That's the job of an office secretary, Miss Tory, not our chief strategist. I know. As I said, it was just a simple request. I do not understand why it's becoming such a huge deal. Very well. I will do it. I'll see you later, Mr. President. And Miss Vice President. I will present you with our options on the Ashraf matter later. He walked out, leaving me alone with Gloria. Well then, I must get back to the move. Thank you for visiting, Mr. President. I will stop by as soon as this is done. I want you to try to get along with Lucian. I'll do my best. Gloria nodded at me and went into her room. I entered my office and asked Sylvia for a second cup of coffee to wake me up. Another long day was waiting for me. All right, so we have a little bit of news here. Gloria Tory rises to the task. Of course, we're getting reactions from her appointment as the vice president now. And Gloria Tory is the vice president. They're actually happy that that's the case. One of those rare moments where I actually can agree with, well, they can actually agree with me on something. Briefing on the women's rights situation, Office of the President of Swortland, Maroon Palace. I was sitting in my office. I looked at the clock. 2:26 p.m. It was almost time for my appointment with Sierra on women's rights. There was a knock at the door. Sierra entered the room with folders in her hand. The door did not close behind her. Monica entered the room and stood next to Sierra. Mr. President, Anton, before we start, I just wanted to thank you for agreeing to this meeting. I've been dreaming about this ever since I volunteered with the Swordish League of Women. I can't believe the moment's finally here. I think both of you together could finally bring change to Swortland. I hope you're right. Sierra sat down on a chair and laid down the folder she was hiding. First off, Mr. President, I wish to thank you for pushing a decree on establishing gender equality in education. You know this is something I've been trying to accomplish since my appointment as minister. The situation in the public schools was disturbing for me. With that said, we still have a long way to go before Swordish women are able to enjoy the same rights and privileges as men, or even as their counterparts in Arcasia and United Cantana. We've been lagging behind on this for decades, Anton. And this isn't only a moral issue. I've seen enough revolutions in this world to understand the main driver of any change: money. She flipped the folder open and started pulling out documents. In United Cantana, law dictates that women earn the same wages as men in their respective fields. My research shows that this led to a 15.5 increase in productivity. You could say this had a direct influence on their superpower status. Arcasia passed laws ensuring maternity leave rights, child daycare centers, and tax deductions for working families. In turn, they experienced a 12.6 productivity boost and a flourishing economy. Both countries also have significantly lower infant mortality rates, a statistic I believe is directly linked to the improved status of women. Our administration has thus far failed to pull Swortland out of its economic recession. She leaned back in her chair. So I'm asking, why not try passing similar laws? At worst, even if they fail to improve the economy, it'll still be a significant step forward for our society. It's only logical. And this will help out my economy, hopefully. Monica handed me one of the documents. It had a list of bullet points on it. The two of us talked it over, and these are the measures we believe are most urgently needed. I let my eyes wander down the list. Criminalizing domestic violence. I shouldn't have to tell you how crucial this is. It is utterly unbelievable that in this day and age, Swordish men are legally allowed to beat their wives. I agree, it's a travesty. I'm happy we're on the same page. As incidences are especially high with Bluish communities, I would also advocate for setting up a special domestic violence task force in collaboration with Bluish women's rights organizations. Monica looked at her strangely. Are you sure that's something we ought to focus on? The Blues are different. They have their own rules. Monica, I'm surprised at you. We can't let women suffer under the patriarchy, no matter their ethnicity. Yeah, interfering Bluish matters has landed us in enough trouble already. I'll just say they must conform to Swordish law. We can discuss the particulars once the law has passed. Support for working mothers. Sierra nodded. It simply isn't fair that women in the workplace are punished for having children. Remember what I told you about Janice, my friend who basically got fired for becoming pregnant? That would never happen to a man. Paid maternity leave and state-subsidized daycare centers could be key to keeping more mothers employed. I don't want to reward women for choosing work over raising their children. Jesus. It's true, having children never hindered my career prospects. It shouldn't hinder a woman either. Exactly. Moving on, equal treatment in the workforce. That's an easy one. Right now, Swortland has one of the continent's largest pay gaps between men and women. We need legislation ensuring that a woman doing the same job as a man is paid the same wage. We would also introduce quotas to get more women into positions of power, in the assembly for instance, or on the boards of corporations. Eventually, narrowing the pay gap is a far more pressing issue, as it would bring financial independence to countless lower income women. Sarah, we never talked about this, but I always thought that with more women in power, higher status for all women would naturally follow. Women are starving because they don't make a living wage. That's a damn sight more important than your friend Jane being passed over for promotion. I do have a problem with the quotas because, I mean, at the end of the day, you want the best people in the job. So, yeah. And it's gonna cause businesses to have problems and stuff like that. So, I don't think I'll go with that. Whew, had to get some water. Sorry about that. Yeah, I think I'm gonna go ahead and go with this. Quotas are a terrible idea. People should be hired on merit, not simply because of their sex. I do kind of wonder if that's gonna have the backfiring of turning around and having a situation where they just don't hire women at all if I don't institute quotas, though. Yeah. Monica and Sierra looked at me strangely. Men are hired on the basis of their sex all the time, just not consciously. There are more than enough qualified women to fill any position that we can think of. It's up to us to give them the opportunity. That covers all subjects. What are your thoughts so far? You've made a good case for all these changes. Thank you. If we can pull this off before the elections, the Rain administration will make history. Let's talk about how to proceed. I want to establish a commission for women's rights in Swortland with me as its head. Our goal shall be passing and implementing a set of laws to solve the problems we just discussed. As the commission's spokeswoman, my responsibility will be to make speeches and organize fundraisers. I will be the face of this movement while Sierra handles the groundwork. If I can show that the First Lady is behind this movement, many women will feel encouraged. Sierra gestured down at her outfit, especially those who aren't keen on pantsuits. The organization's name will be the Commission on the Status of Women. What do you need a commission for? I'll run your laws past the assembly. Even if that's successful, you'll still need the commission to ensure the laws are successfully implemented and convince the public the changes will be beneficial. Mr. President, I know we've had friction in the past, but this has nothing to do with your decision on creationism. This is a completely separate topic, and it should be handled as such. You have the chance to be a hero. Think about Dana and her future. I hope you will make the right decision. They rose from their seats expectantly. It took a few minutes to think. I will approve the creation of the commission and support your bill in the assembly. Great, amazing. You won't regret this, Mr. President. Monica turned to her. That's all the excitement you can muster? You did it. We did it. Monica hugged Sierra. She looked uncomfortable. We still have a long way to go. I'll start gathering names for the commission tonight. Sierra started collecting her documents. She and Monica headed towards the door. Monica paused before leaving. I love you, Anton. I'll see you at home. I could hear Monica and Sierra talking excitedly to each other as the door closed behind them. I looked out my window over the city of Wholesword. It was a clear day outside. Okay, so yeah, well, luckily with Gloria Tori on my side, I'll have the support of the conservatives. But yeah, I'm going to need to turn around and kind of wiggle my way into certain political matters because it's going to be rough. It's going to be real rough. Okay. And some things have been updated there. Let's see. I want to see what it says. Oh, she was a strong critic of you all, Alfonso. Okay, so I appointed her as vice president. Cool. All right. Let's see what else we got here. Sworders League of Women's donation. Sworders League of Women have requested a private donation from the president. I'll donate a hefty sum. I do have a lot of money after all. I do need to be careful because I am going to need that money later on, and I'm hoping that some of my other investments will kind of help me out in that. So, yeah. All right. So, we have a mediation of a dispute in the Gendarmerie. So we have to. Oh yeah, this was the whole thing that Isof Lankia and Lilius Graf were fighting about earlier, about the determination of whether the Gendarmerie should be in the military or the police. And I think I'll move that over to her. So, Rain makes donation to the Sworders League of Women. There's that. And Anton Rains donate to support women. Will policies follow? Now they're curious about certain things. So, having some nice feedback from them, it's always good. I am doing this for a lot of the economic support, so I feel like having women in the workplace will help a lot. I don't know to what extent they're already in the workplace, but I'm pretty sure that'll boost that economy up. So, and it'll make us look good to the rest of the world also. All right. I arrived in the city of Sword with my new vice president, Gloria, after receiving an emergency meeting request from Isof and Lilius. I had seen the reports of a recent issue that rose between the Sworders police forces and the Gendarmerie units at the city. The report said that an operation against a drug trafficking gang in the Sword failed due to miscommunication. It was not hard to guess what this meeting was going to be about. We entered the city hall, and made our way to the second floor. I could hear Isof and Lilia's voices echoing through the hall. I opened the doors to the meeting room. The two ministers did not even realize. This is unacceptable. How dare the police meddle in the affairs of the Gendarmerie? It was your men who started this ridiculousness and meddled with an ongoing police investigation. Their voices were getting louder and louder. Rural security is my jurisdiction, and your men were way outside of the Sword. Ministers, please stop your bickering in front of Mr. President. We will get nowhere if you continue with this behavior. Mr. President. Miss Vice President. Apologies, but Miss Graf here fails to understand her place. No, Mr. Lankia, you are the one who does not understand his place. If you continue to do so, you will pay for it one day. Slam the table. I slammed the table, which shocked the ministers. They fell silent. Lilius, explain what happened. Miss Grazer was tasked with the investigation of a drug trafficking ring in downtown Visord. We found the evidence of a drug stash located in the outskirts of the city. We had to act quickly to put an end to the criminals we have been watching for some time. So we immediately sent our police units to catch them and find the drugs in the compound. Mr. Lankia and his gendarmerie did not notify us that they were also moving against the same target. As a result, criminals got away and we lost months of progress. Isn't there a line of communication between you? There is, but the Minister of Defense decided to avoid notifying the police department about the planned raid. The same could be said about you because the reports show that you knew about the gang and their stash in the countryside. I started tapping on the table with my fingers. We're getting nowhere. We need to find a middle ground. I think this was the last drop. Internal security matters should be handed to Ministry of Interior completely. We are called the Ministry of Interior for a reason. We can't let any more screw-ups like this happen again. She looked at me. I want Gendarmerie to be transferred to the Ministry of Interior. What? Woman, are you out of your mind? Isov turned red with anger. He composed himself after a moment. I have to agree with Miss Graff. If we unify the command, our internal security will improve. There's no question to that. Look, Miss Tori, I know you're new at this and there is much that you were not briefed about, but I don't have to be briefed to see common sense, Mr. Lankia. I would also like to remind you that it is Miss Vice President to you. Ridiculous. This is absolutely ridiculous. I won't hand over the Gendarmerie to her. Out of the question. Why? Because it makes sense? Because the Gendarmerie is also a part of the military structure and must be tied to the defense. The police forces don't have the right equipment and reach to cover rural areas like the Gendarmerie does. The police forces have certain units that are capable of conducting similar operations. I want to remind you about your promise, Mr. President. I remember it very well. Don't you worry. That is relieving. What promise? Now I see what's going on here. Enlighten us. What's going on here, Isov? Lilius set us up to create this incident. Lilius bit her lips. This is going too far. What proof do you have? There's no way that the police has arrived at the right time of a month-long search on the exact day and minute of the Gendarmerie raid. This is conspiracy theory territory. It very much is a conspiracy theory. This kind of accusation is unheard of. It's nonsense. If I were you, I wouldn't believe a word Mr. Lankia says, Mr. President. I don't know about that, because hell, even Carl, who's just like doing all the shady stuff in Thorlin right now, is just like, yeah, Lilius is up to something. Heed my word, Mr. President. When dealing with these situations, you need to always look at who gets what out of it. I won't stand idle by these utterly ridiculous and baseless accusations. I don't have time for this. What's your decision? The Gendarmerie will be transferred to the Ministry of Interior. You are making a mistake. Thank you for being a man of your word. It was the right call to establish a modern internal security structure. I want those criminals be caught immediately. I want them dead, but whatever. We've interrogated the ones caught and are after others who've escaped. Don't worry, they will get the justice they deserve. I left the room to attend to my next scheduled meeting. Alright, see what else we got here. Gendarmerie transfer to the interior. Okay, so that's that. Let's see what our country overview has here. Order. Ministry of Interior has been strengthened. The transfer of the Gendarmerie has given the Ministry of Interior more powers in internal authority. And the military is still doing okay. So it's not like they lost anything from that. I mean, I gave them a big ass budget, so Alright, Old Guard investigation report. A few leads have been uncovered revealing several low-level cases of corruption as well as high-ranking party officials' possible ties to the Bernard Circus assassination. This will be duly followed upon. Interesting. Alright, briefing on the current healthcare situation. Office of the President of Sortland, Maroon Palace. I had a meeting scheduled with Pascal to receive the annual healthcare report. He arrived at my office with stacks of papers underneath both arms. Mr. President, he put the mountain of papers on my desk. It made a loud thud sound. I know this seems like a lot. Viewing it shouldn't take more than a day. He measured the pile again. Or maybe two. That sounds just great. They contain very important information about the status of our healthcare. Salaries, spending, hospital reports, whatever you like. We can go through this together. Okay, let's begin. He continued. But I don't want to bore you, so I will quickly summarize. Thanks. I breathed a sigh of relief as he put on his reading glasses to look at the documents he was holding. So, we have concluded our report for the year. Our services haven't necessarily gotten better compared to the last years. We've missed several funding opportunities to expand our services in the country, leading to several issues being unsolved. Anybody can succeed when given all the resources. We need to do better. Yes, I agree. The recession absolutely pushed welfare to the brink, and no further funds mean we couldn't do much. But as you can see, it hasn't been the best year for us at all. We will do better next year, don't worry. That is what I'm trying to achieve. He cleared his throat. Now that I have given you the short summary, there's a very important matter to discuss. Leaning over to grab his briefcase, he pulled out a tan-colored package. The package was stamped with big red letters that read confidential. Pascal opened the package and brought out a few documents. He handed them over to me. I took the documents from his hand. It was a report from the Ministry of Health. Each page had a stamp on it that read, "For the President's eyes only." The report was titled, "Polio Outbreak in Bergia." This is very concerning. It is, Mr. President. For now, it seems to be under control. We've put a few villages under quarantine. The total number of infected are currently 1,467. The death toll is at 23 so far. If we have more outbreaks, the results will be terrible. We are not where we could have been in terms of our healthcare funding. With what we currently have, I'm afraid it might not be enough to curb the infection ratio. This is a very serious matter, Mr. President. Lives of sordid citizens are at stake. What can we do about it? We've done our research. There is a cure. A vaccination was recently invented in United Cantana by a doctor, and the formula has been made available for free in the entire world. No matter what people think about United Cantana, the same thing happened in Arcasia. We will be paying the price for it. Unfortunately, because of the state of our current funding, we do not have the required materials, and we don't have the capability to produce this vaccine locally, which means we have to buy it. It will be costly, but nothing comes before health. Okay. Procure whatever you need immediately. So we're finna go back into the negative. Great, great. You have once again proven that you are the right leader for Sortland in my eyes. Right away, Mr. President. This is a great first step, but I'm afraid simply having the vaccine won't help. We need to make sure they are administered. We need to implement a nationwide mandatory polio vaccination policy. With your order, I can immediately get to work to ensure we're doing whatever it takes. This might seem excessive, however. It is absolutely necessary. Whatever it takes to protect Sortland, do it. Yeah, I mean, we already see how that's working out in the world right now. Great. Excellent. Now, if you will excuse me, I must get to work immediately. He got up from his seat. Thank you for your time, Mr. President. He left my office, leaving me alone with a lot of paperwork to go through. Alright. Budget is in the negative again. I worked so hard to get us out of that. Lothberg Group opens first private prisons. That's always great, but they're investing in that, so driving the economy, jobs, I guess. Free medicine in a stored. That's helping out a little bit. And a poor family thanked me. You're very welcome. Buy iron lung. More of the iron lung health equipment is needed to keep people alive from polio. Shite. So that's going to be a problem. Protest against gender equality in education. Okay. And what do we have here in the Capitol? Less Spoke Bill. Sign or veto the Less Spoke Bill that was approved by the Grand National Assembly. The Assembly... Oh, that gives us a little bit to the economy, too. Okay, that's all I needed to see. The Assembly passes an amendment to the tax bill of 1944 in order to increase tax revenue and reduce the excessive amount of tobacco consumption in the general populace. Section 1 of the TB of 44, which had imposed a 10% tax on all tobacco packages, will be increased to 30% on all tobacco products sold in the country. Section 2 will protect local industries by giving them a full tax exemption if the products are destined for export to other countries. And I will sign that, because again, money. Need to help out that budget. Okay, we're back at 0, but we're finna go back down to we're finna go back down to -1 here in a second. Possibly. Time to smoke less. They're talking about that bill we just passed, and Lachavian Times is also talking about that. Lovely, lovely, lovely. All right. Okay, the dangerous epidemic in the Bergia region has displayed the weakness in our health system. As more and more patients are falling to polio, it is becoming clear that without a massive batch of new iron lungs, the patients will be left to die. So let's go ahead and get that. And we go back into the negative once again. So, always good stuff. And the Hulser Post is reporting on that. So what else do we have here? Support Ashtroff anniversary. Now, I've actually done this once before. I attended with an armored convoy. It did not do me much good. I will not go to this. I don't want to cause even more trouble there, so, or at least not while physically being there. So, I'm not going to go. All right. So, let's see what we have in the news. President doesn't attend anniversary despite invite from leak. Yep. And briefing on the current political situation. So I'll go ahead and do this, and then after that we'll wrap this episode up. I walked to the White Room with a cup of coffee in my hand. I had a meeting with the Vice President on the current political situation. I opened the doors and entered the room. Gloria immediately stood up. Good morning, Mr. President. Good morning. I wanted to provide you with some quick updates on the current political situation. She pulled out a few documents from a briefcase and laid them on the table. Mr. Ho has reported to me that he almost concluded the plan for the next steps we can take for improving our economy. He said he wanted to solidify the plan before it is presented to you. He will schedule a meeting soon to go over our options. Simon can pull it off, I'm sure. It's never failed me before. Mr. Ho is a savvy man. I'm sure he will deliver as well. She closed the folder and put away the documents. And that is all for the quick updates. Well, this is it for now. As I mentioned, this was just a quick update. Thanks, Gloria. Good work. Thank you, Mr. President. I left the room to attend my next meeting. Yeah, at least she's actually here for damn meetings. So let's see what we got going on in Bergia. Let me see. Governor of Bergia, Felix Braun, kidnapped by the BFF. We're gonna have to deal with that. Great. Long lines waiting for polio vaccine in Dire. Most of the people of Bergia region are happy that the disease is under control, though, so that's always good. Gaining a little support there. Polio disease is controlled inside the Bergia region. Nice. That is good news. Seoul Dam is captured by the BFF. How have we allowed this to turn into such a shit show there? Bombing of Gendarmerie outposts in Ribble. Nice. Maybe I should have left it with the military. Great. Great stuff. All around great stuff. And what do we have going on at the Capitol? Supreme Court is conspiring to impeach. Lucian reports the Supreme Court is thinking about pushing Richter's case further to impeachment. Of course, we always knew that that was a possibility. In the news, BFF raised the governor's office. Governor Braun kidnapped, so we have to deal with that. And government imposed mandatory vaccine policy. And of course, there's a little backlash at that. They'll be okay. BFF captures Seoul Dam. They're reporting the same thing as well. And the government buys polio vaccine from Kairut. Rimbaud Gendarmerie outpost bombing. And they're reporting that. President's decisive action stops polio in its track. So the Radical is actually happy about that. So that's always nice. But yes, in the next episode, we will attend the briefing on the increasing unrest among the populace. We're going to need to do something about that. So yeah, that will be the next video. But we've made a lot of progress. It's such a shame that we lost Peter Vectern for being a douche. And we also lost our secretary for also conspiring with a douche and being a spy. Always great stuff. But things had to be done. So, if you liked the video, like the video. If you want to see more content like this, subscribe. I have plenty of stuff in my library, and I have more stuff to come. And like I said, we are actually getting closer and closer to the end. I think maybe about 3 or 4 more episodes, and we might actually wrap this up pretty soon. So, yeah, I'm actually curious to see what's going to happen, because I do know certain things that might happen, but I'm approaching this a little bit better. So, as I said before, my last playthrough did not end well, so I have yet to actually make it through the game. But yeah, we'll see how this turns out. So, thank you for watching. See you in the next one.